Welcome to our podcast where we have the privilege of introducing you to Jonathan Gabriel, a visionary filmmaker, founder, and director of the Arrhythmia Films companies. Jonathan's journey is a testament to the power of following your passion. From humble beginnings, he pursued his love for filmmaking, majoring in it during college. But he didn't stop there. Jonathan ventured beyond the extraordinary, embracing his joy for traveling, cooking, and other hobbies that fueled his creativity. Now, his dedication to growth and improvement is remarkable. Jonathan understands the importance of listening and learning from others, which enhances his ability to create impactful films. Each frame, emotion, and narrative, he leaves a lasting impression on the world. Today, we invite you to join us in exploring Jonathan Gabriel's extraordinary journey. Be prepared to be inspired and moved as we uncover the essence of his remarkable path. Let his story ignite a fire within you to pursue your dreams and unwavering passion day by day and year by year. Get ready to embark on a conversation that will resonate with you on a personal level. Welcome to the world of Jonathan Gabriel, where creativity knows no bounds and the power of storytelling shines bright. Jonn, thank you so much for jumping into this podcast. I'm super excited to have you. We haven't talked in a long time, and now we're here in this conversation, and I'm just super grateful for this experience because I'm gonna get to learn how you've been doing, and also at the same time get a chance to hear your story and what you've been up to. So if you don't mind, tell me about your work, filmmaking, and what motivated you to go in that direction, and any thoughts that you wanted to share, and jump right in.
Yeah, so again, my name is Jonathan Gabriel. I am a film director in Atlanta, Georgia, and I now have a company called Arrhythmia Films, which is my own production company. So I've always been into like camera stuff, even from like a super young age. And being involved in a lot of creative spaces, and like I ended up going to college for film, but not a film college. But then from there I ended up going home and I lived with my parents, and I worked as a courier for my dad's company, and I was like, dang, like I'm not making films. So I ended up I knew someone who was in Atlanta who was making films, and was like, hey, I have this house and we're gonna just like create this community. And so he's like, you should move here, but if you want to know Atlanta, you should stay here for like 6 months to a year. So I saved up like a month or two of actually I saved up like a year's full of rent, moved to Atlanta, and realized that he said, you can stay here a month, but if you want to get to know, like, that wasn't an invitation, but that 1 month turned into a year, and so on. And we ended up getting this like really nice connection. And from there, I was able to hop on like tons of different film sets, from feature films to commercials, and being involved with like big productions, seeing like movie stars, and then also being involved in projects on my own, working with some fun name drops like Coca-Cola and Honda and Home Depot. And I've done promos for Fast and Furious. I've been on all this kind of all these types of like gig projects. And from there I started going down this road where I would help other people on their projects. But then I realized that like I noticed that like some of the projects that I was working on, a lot of the crew was not either being treated right, like we're making good work but not work well. And so like I can go into that in deeper, but basically I was like, you know what, I don't like how I'm being treated, and I don't like seeing my friends and my friends being treated this way. I'm going to start my own company where I have full control over certain projects, but also help build the bridge between like the artist and like the people with like the money. So yeah, that's kind of like a little bit of a nutshell of my journey. And I've been in charge and have been directing and producing small projects, but also leading up to bigger projects. And I've had the company, I think, for like 3 or 5 years. So
Thank you for going back into that story of how you started your career, your journey, and the people that you met along the way. It just shows that you respect yourself and the people around you. You cared about your passion, you went for it, and you found the right group who you're just going to do really great work with. And I'm curious about the part of that breaking point. How did you get to a certain point that told you, I'm done? Even though I'm doing all this amazing work with people, I'm hitting it off with all these business partners, I'm done. I want to just do my own thing. I'm sure that was much harder, but we decided to go for it. Why?
well, I still work on projects with other people as well. In fact, I think it's really important to be doing like your own stuff and then working on other teams as well. You can like learn from other teams. And like I was helping out a project, and on the commercial they threw the person through like fake glass. And in the process they actually broke like a few of the fake glasses before they even set it up, which like lets me know that like if I ever want to do that stunt, I need to buy like 3 or 4 or 5 of these. So like I always want to be learning from each other how different people do things, you know, because I want to always be self-improving all the time. So my big breaking point was and I've always you know, I've always been like a leader in like creative spaces where like I'm the one on the stage, or I'm the one who's kind of advocating for certain things. So that's been like my personality, even from like a smaller stage. So, but for me, I kind of recognize that like I'm able to have deeper conversations in a way that like building bridges. And I think, you know, for me I'm a storyteller as well. And I feel like that also helps in how I talk to clients, how I talk to the people with money, or the people with opportunities, or, you know, the people who have an idea that I have this idea, but I can't make it happen. And I love building that bridge and helping like, and I think that speaks into my storytelling as well, is I like to help people with kind of a hard concept and help them like turn into something tangible. So I've done that in my storytelling. And I feel like that's also a part of my personality is I'm a big hospitality person. So like I gravitate towards like the underdog person, and I want them, like, I don't feel like I'm enjoying the party if like one person's not enjoying the party. So that's another reason why I wanted to start my own company, to kind of be able to build that bridge for like the unsung voices at times.
I know that you care a lot about people and you will sense when someone is not, feeling great, but you can't please everyone and
Right.
you're not going to.
Mm-hmm.
How would you be able to mitigate that with your personal goals? And also, I guess, quieting that noise, because to me, if you're constantly trying to look at everyone and what their needs are, it's so hard at times to know what you want, even though, I mean, at that point, you're gonna feel burnt out, right? You're gonna feel
Right.
like you're
Right.
struggling more than you're succeeding. So walk me through how you figure that out for yourself.
Right. Well, as I started the company, that was also like during COVID. And so there was that kind of uh I feel like my like Arrhythmia films kind of started taking off during COVID, but that also was like there was space to like pause. And for me, like what you ask is a great question, because I feel like I didn't really have a boundary before COVID kind of like forced everything to just like stop for a minute and like do reflecting, whereas before I would literally, like you said, try to help everyone, and then and then I burn out. Like that was a big thing that would happen very often. I sometimes pour myself really heavily into high potential, low motivated people. So I get so excited for a person, and then I'm often disappointed when they don't take, like, I'll help the person through like step 1, step 2, and then they don't go to step 3, and like that would burn me out a lot. So after COVID, I kind of did a lot of self-reflecting, like who am I pouring into? And there's like the return, not return on investment, but I feel like there's times when I'm spending my energy and recharging my energy, and there's certain people that drain my energy, which is fine if I have been filled. So that's something that like I'm realizing, like I probably shouldn't drink coffee at night. A beer is probably the better option, whereas a beer in the morning, probably not great. So, but that's also me recognizing, like, when am I needing that extra energy? And so if I do feel like someone who I really appreciate, if I'm feeling drained, I'm not going to go towards that person, or I'm going to go there very limitedly and not expect as much. And I'm really going to pour into people that, like, trying to recognize like when someone's trying. If I can see someone's trying and they just need tools, I don't mind walking alongside you. But if it's kind of that I've learned to like give a little and then see if like I'm getting fulfilled, or like if I'm being poured into, or not being poured into, and finding out, like basically figuring out like when do I need to be recharged, when do I need to spend, because I can't just overcharge myself. I'm an extrovert and I love people. And so for me, I want to be with people, but I also, if they're not serious, I need to set boundaries. And I feel like that's what COVID kind of helped me um, pause, figure out who's pouring back into me, and then I can pour. And then I can recognize when to pour back into them. And it may be a season too. So that's like, one person might be great for a time, and then maybe they are starting to be draining, and I just need to make sure that like when those moments happened, that I'm fulfilling myself.
You said that
Otherwise I'll burn out.
yes. You said that you reflect. I'm wondering if it's because as an extrovert and knowing your personality and you love people and things like that, do you do this like reflection every single day? Like, give me an idea, give people an idea of, is it a schedule type of way? Or is it self-dialogue throughout the day? Do you have quotes? Like, how do you ensure that you're working on that part of yourself and in a sense not forgetting what you told yourself you would do, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I don't always have a scheduled thing. I do keep notes from time to time, mostly for like things that I'm trying to do throughout the day. Are you referring to like how I manage people, or how I like try to recognize like if I'm starting to burn out? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it's a mixture of both, right? Where you're recognizing how, because you're constantly working with people, you're an extrovert. How do you manage people and balance your emotions?
Right. So I think there's a lot of things we want to do in life. All of us, we want to accomplish everything. We're out, when we go on social media, we see everyone's achievements with where someone's in Italy, someone's doing this. So I think, I think carving out margin in your life, I think that's what helps me. Instead of planning things back to back to back, by creating margin, I can kind of like gauge like, okay, should I be doing this? Or, hey, I haven't exercised in a while. Like when everything's back to back to back to back, I think that's problematic. And so I think there's times where like I don't recognize it, and I end up like sometimes falling down that path. But I've also realized that like I'm trying to add things that I know for a fact give me energy, revamp me. So like I found that like during COVID, again, I feel like a lot of this realization happened during COVID. Like, I really like to cook. Like, that helps me. It's cathartic. It's like, sometimes it's the same thing. I've been making great food, and it's rewarding. I love doing it. So like, for me, I cook often. And so I know that I'm going to be getting a relaxing thing that requires my full attention, and I can't really touch anything. So like, it really is going to require my full attention. So for me, like, one thing I do is like, if I'm scheduling cooking, I know that that's going to be something that fulfills me. And I think that that's a way that I sometimes like gauge like what's going to build me up and what's going to drain my energy, what's going to fulfill my energy. Like, I thought video games give me energy. They actually don't. They drain me, which is fine. But again, knowing where my bar is, you know, where, how much energy do I have, and how much energy am I willing to like spend? So to me, like, creating space and margin for things that I know give me energy, like drawing. I've been really enjoying drawing recently. And so drawing it forces me to go a little slower. I'm like, you know, recognizing things a little more because I'm not just like taking a photo. So like, those are like two things that I do that kind of like, I try to include, not always, but try to include throughout my week, and sometimes and often sometimes throughout the day, that I know is going to give me energy, so I can like either pour back into people or take time for myself to reflect.
Yeah, you talk a lot about energy. Could you break it down just a little bit? Do you mean feeling good, like about yourself? Do you mean you smile more, and or you're able to you know, I guess disconnect and be really focused? Like, what does that even mean when you say I am able to have more energy, I can pour energy? Like, what does that look like?
Sure. Yeah. When I speak about energy, when I speak about like, some of it is like social battery. That's part of it. Like, as an introvert, you know, um, going out in public, it's going to drain you, which is fine as long as you have the energy to do it, you know, whereas like an extrovert, sometimes people can like inspire someone, you know, but you also can't overcharge or overspend, or else you get like burned out. And I think that sometimes, you know, there's people, not to make this super transactional, but like, there's people that drain you, like say a family member, which is fine, but like, knowing that like, hey, you know, for me to grab one beer with a friend might be great, you should definitely do it. For me to grab two, maybe, but maybe three is like, now you start to spending, now you're spending, and you're not getting the investment back into yourself. So whereas you either should go home, grab a 6-pack, otherwise you're going to spend a lot of money, or just, you know, kind of figuring out like, what is pouring back into my life. And so I think that that's when I talk about energy, is like, when, you know, sometimes you'll spend a lot of time, especially time. Like, I feel like time is very precious, and I think that that's something I'm learning as well, is like, where am I spending my time as a human, as an artist, as, you know, as a friend. You know, I think there's times where you've probably recognized like, I probably shouldn't be, I've spent too much time here, you know, but like, we feel guilty sometimes to like leave a conversation. And I'm realizing like, hey, when I spend my time drawing, like, I'm also going to get something out of it. I'm going to, like, there's different fulfillment. So that's part of what I look at when I talk about like energy, what I'm putting into the world, and or just like, simply like, hey, I'm listening to you, but like, I'm here not trying to give you feedback. Sometimes like, me literally just listening and validating, like, I'm not spending a lot of mental energy. So I'm able to keep our conversations like longer, and also protect. And I think another thing is like, protecting your energy from things that would drain it. So maybe social media. I mean, I love social media because like, it's social, but I think that there's times where like, maybe your mom takes too much energy from you, and we need to set a boundary. So in the past, I definitely did not have too many boundaries. I was very free for all. But I'm trying to be more focused, to do more deep listening, do deeper conversations, and try to like, kind of make slow the punches, so the punches connect.
That's interesting. I was just gonna ask you, what you talk a lot about time and how you spend your energy and keeping boundaries for yourself to stay grounded, to stay um in a place where you're feeling awesome. What do you focus on these days to manage your time, or to like what are you emphasizing more now based on all of your experiences?
It's a great question. I've been thinking a lot about burnout, and I've had a lot of talks with my friend Liz about how hobbies prevent burnout. And so to me, I've been focusing a lot on hobbies. As a filmmaker, I am always filming. So everything I do is a write-off. I go to the movies, it's a write-off. I'm doing research, you know. I buy something for my house, buy a chair. Oh, it could be a prop, research, or so my taxes are like crazy. Like it's just everything is like a write-off, but it's because like my life is very intertwined with film. And like I also like I fly a drone, so like right off I go to Italy, bring the drone, I'm gonna make a demo reel right off, so to me a lot of and I'm also like a storyteller. I love telling stories. The way I show like like love is like I love making videos for people. I love showing people. It's a very visual, it's very fulfilling. It's a very amusing, like when there's a party, I just throw if they want to see something I've made, it's a very fun, easy way to entertain. But at the same time, like I don't always have that line between like when am I filming and when am I not filming. And so I was really born with like a camera facing like my dad had a camera that I like played with. Like I look through, I feel like I look through the camera, and I can also I also watch the stuff usually back. So it almost gives me time to like also reflect on what just happened. So that also might be a way that like I personally love reflecting on moments, like hard moments especially. But I think that like hobbies have been important for me because it has separated what I do a lot, which is I make films for fun and I make films for business, and everything is films all the time. And hobbies have kind of allowed me to like breathe and explore new things, like realizing that like I really like hiking and I really like volleyball. And there's a lot of other things that like I've tried new things that have like helped kind of refresh my brain, reset my brain, refresh it, and almost like taking like a mental nap by just doing something that also gives me energy and joy.
Yeah, I like that. The focus on looking into what you enjoy, doing more of that. Um, I think you're doing everything you enjoy at this point, right? From film to like all your hobbies and meeting so many great people.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's it. There's good. That's not to say I'm not lonely, and it's not like to say that I don't have these hard moments. I think that that's where very often, people who are funny, people who are charming and have a lot of woo, in their personality, they're very lonely. And that's something I struggle with a lot, is like loneliness. My wife like works a lot, which is like great, pursuing her dreams, but there's times where like she'll travel, or we just can't connect. And we're doing fine, but it's like there's times where I need to realize that like this is a lonely path at times. Like I don't have a steady 9 to 5 job that has the 401k provided for you. But like right now I will say that like I do have consistent people that I'm like working with, which is like that's like one of those fun things about like growing a company. And I'm able to pour into these people, which is like really great, pour into them like from like a financial standpoint, and from like a like knowledge, and trying to be connecting. Like if we can, if they're not going to work well with me, I want to launch them to wherever they're going to work well with. So I think that those are things that help me try to deal with loneliness. And I think that that's something that like the older I get, the more I'm realizing that like, I'm not going to get all my fulfillment from like one person or from different people. Like I really need to find that fulfillment in me. And so, self-love and acceptance is like super important. So that's another thing that I struggle with a lot. So, that's and I try to communicate that through like films, and like it's great that like, I'm trying to get emotions out of people. Because I think that a lot of us hold on to our emotions, and then that's another thing that does burn us out. So as well. So, but I try to bring happiness and joy into people's lives, and I try to make hard voices, voices that are difficult heard, from different cultures, from especially in this day and age where there's a lot of like xenophobia and a lot of just like different like misfires from like different cultures, and even within the United States, like very divided often from like either politically or ideology, but we also have a lot in common. And so I think that deep listening and being able to like share this stuff is so important. So I put a big emphasis on like trying to make sure that people feel heard.
You do put a lot of emphasis on other people. Why are you still having a hard time accepting yourself?
That's a great question. I don't know. I think maybe that's just I think I'm definitely getting better than I was. I yeah, I'm getting better on like self-compassion. What in it, even from a simple like, when something messes up, like I spilled water on a computer recently, and like during projects that needed to be done, and like did not have great self-compassion. But I also was reading a book called Self-Compassion, which was like great timing. And it was, you know, even from just like not calling yourself names, like, hey, this stuff happens, like this is gonna be okay. Like we're trying in this world. We're like, who am I to like I don't know. It's hard. I think that's a hard question because
I'm not sure if it's that hard, to be honest, because you focus on a lot of people, and I do too, right? I think,
yeah, you do as well. You really like
but I think like for me, when I learned to process, why was it hard for me to self-accept myself? And I think it was because I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought I just didn't meet up to people's expectations, or like everyone else is so much better off, like because it's within your personality where you like to lift everyone up, and then when you feel like you've done something and in the moment, or someone criticize you, you're like, oh, that's some, and you wonder to yourself, like, is that something I can change? And especially if you respect that person, right? Growing up, you take it as truth. And then until you learn how to unravel that, it becomes something you have to work on unlearning and thinking about who you are and why you actually matter, your self-worth, and then learning to really love yourself. What does love look like for you? Because it might look differently. And I'm hearing you're loving yourself. I just didn't quite understand why you couldn't accept yourself, and why it's so different from self-love versus self-acceptance, or is it?
I think they're intertwined. I think it's nuanced. You know, I feel very, I think I've recognized that like I'm very small in like my impact in the world. And like there's that weird harsh reality of like, you know, when I'm gone, like maybe my stuff will be remembered for 50 years, maybe 100. Like, I don't know much. I don't have too much stuff of like my grandparents or my great grandparents. Like, so like at the end of the day, I think that's also where I'm just like, well, like I want to almost help as many people as possible. Like, I feel like that's like, I think, you know, that's part of our role in the community, you know, in as humans and human connection. And I think, you know, that's part of like us trying to experience the world and understanding different people's perspectives. And I think that that's something that like I try not to focus too much on me. uh Whereas I'd rather like lift, like I feel like, as I said before, like I feel like when we're all winning, like we win when we all win. You know, I don't want to make just good art. I want to make good art well. I want to make sure that we're treating people well. You know, I want to make sure that like we're hearing people, you know, voices are being heard and not being silenced. Like these are, you know, and I think that like, so the self-love, I think that I struggle with that because like I think I'm also a perfectionist. So like I expect a lot from me. But I'm also like, hey, like, you know, I'm doing the best I can with the tools and information I had, with the environment I grew up in, with like, you know, it's like sometimes, you know, it's easy to compare yourself to like the more you know, the more you realize like, oh wow, I'm like, I'm not there. It's like the gap gets larger the more you learn and grow. But at the same time, I think, you know, a good mantra is like when we win, when we win, like I win. Like that's kind of how I try to like look at the world, I guess.
That's interesting. Did you learn that? Was it from your culture or upbringing, or is it something that you understood to be true later on, or is it just makes more sense due to your personality?
I think part of it is personality. I definitely grew up where I think all of us grew up in like, we want to include everyone, but like as we kind of get older, it starts to fracture. And that's something I don't like. I don't like that, like, oh, we like this person conditionally. Like, I love you unconditionally with one condition. And it's like, look, you can't, those two sentences can't be in the same place. You know, if we need to help other people, we need to understand other people, not, you know, you have to do this or else. You know, I think that that's where like, as I grew up, I learned about love. And then as I got older, I realized love is conditional for a lot of people. And I'm a big, you know, I don't think that's the world that I want this world to be.
Mm.
I think that sometimes is how the world is, but I also feel like if I'm going to toss my grain of rice life, piece of grain of rice into a pile, I want humanity to love humanity. So I think that we can be selfish at times. And there's definitely stupid people out there with like, you know, where it's not working. But at the same time, like I think that it's good for us to I want this world to be better than how I got it. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I think it's taught to us, but not continually taught. And so I think we can still care about each other. And I think that comes from listening and not over talking people, like truly deep listening.
It's
And exposure to different life, exposure to different culture. And I think that's why I'm also attracted to like film, because I do feel like film connects people. And like I've learned so much from film, from YouTube, from movies growing up, you know, from anime, from kung fu movies, from like Bollywood movies. Like there's times where I'm like, this exists. Like, why haven't I, like, I think that, and I think that's part of the human experience, and the human, like that's what I want humans to experience rather.
yeah. So all of your emotions and your thoughts of what life could be like and how much you want to pour into the world, did it come from being in your family where I think you may have mentioned um your family is very diverse, like culturally and ethnically mixed, I think.
It's become that way. Yeah, it's Arabic. My mom's Arabic and my dad's Polish. And oh, I will say, my parents did grow up in a I grew up in a very hospitable, hosting family. Like we had friends. Like, I guess it came to me like a little bit now. Um, we're always hosting. My parents were always hosting and being, leaders in different parts of the community. And I had a friend who was dealing with like drug issues and got kicked out of his house. And um my mom like just was like, you can stay. You stay as long as you need. And I think that like I think I can't exactly remember, like he may have been like smoking pot or like been like bisexual or gay, like there may have been like different ideas could enter our home, but my mom was like, no, but he needs help right now. And so that was something that was like a big moment, I think, in my family of like, we I don't know how I feel about this, but we want to make sure he's in a safe place for now. And I think that like that's also, I think, where a lot of my hospitality and love does come from, family and growing up in that way. And um yeah, that's definitely I do remember like that, and that's definitely made me like cool. And that's rippled into like whether it was in college where people are like, hey, we're taking care of people, but like with a condition. And it's like, no, you're not even listening to what's going on. And that's what happened a lot. So I think that did come from family, from how I was raised. We were raised to treat people well. And my dad said something to me a long time ago, and he was like, he's like, he not in a mean way, but he's like, no one's gonna call you Jonn. Like, no one's gonna invite you over to their party because they're not having a party. You need to invite them to your party, basically. So I think that that's also encouraged, which is, I'm like, thanks, Dad. But it's funny because like that stuck with me. It's like, you're not going to be invited to parties, so make the party and invite people. So that's what I'm trying to like. I feel like that's also what I try to do with like my film stuff, involving people, trying to connect people in the right spot, because I feel like we're all on a journey, and sometimes like we get stuck. And while part of it is the journey itself, like I think sometimes like if there's ways we can encourage one another, I think that's important.
Yeah. I'm curious though, when you were going through those experiences, your parents were so hospitable and they demonstrate that as a kid, and I'm imagining you were really young at that time, did you feel like you weren't heard at any point because you had to kind of put your emotions aside just for a moment so that you can focus on the other person who's in need, even if that person's maybe much older, now they're almost the center of your family's attention, whereas you could have been.
I mean, I'm an oldest child of three. And I mean, I think I was making movies with my brothers, whether they liked it or not. Like, I was in charge. You have to follow me. So, for me, I've definitely been a person who is not afraid of pushing the boundaries. I think that's another thing I did a lot with my family, is I pushed the boundaries a lot. So for me, if I'm not feeling heard, I talk louder. I've definitely, I don't do that as much nowadays. I'm trying to slow the punch for the better connect. And I definitely think that when I was younger, I would physically yell to be heard. But I'm also like a person who is like, if we need to explore this way. I'm also the first person in my family to leave the the family house, whereas like my whole family has stayed in Syracuse, New York. And me, like, and my dad had a business of 3 generations, Gabriel Auto Parts. So it's like we had this like generations. So like I'm the next one to take on the next company. And my dad also was like, hey, Jonn, like it doesn't seem like this is the direction you're gonna go in. Like if you want to go into film, you can do it. So that was another encouragement of like, hey, try new things. Expose yourself to something new and something different. And so that's something. And my parents are always teaching like love, always love, and like care for one another. Like that's the big things. And like me pioneering has unlocked my brother moving out, and my brothers both leaving, and my parents are most likely gonna leave the house that they've stayed in for over 30 years. And the town and state, they've been in the same state for I think like their whole life and maybe beyond generations. So like that's, and even now like me exploring new places has like allowed my parents to like kind of, they've like lived through me a little bit. They're now like, wait, I didn't realize like this was happening. And I feel like they, not that they had a closed mind, but like I feel like this has opened their mind further. And I think that like me pushing through, like if I wasn't able to feel heard, I pushed to be heard. So that's part of my bold personality, but I think that that's also, I love sharing that with people too.
Yeah.
I think I veered off a little bit, but like I want to go, but I also like part of my heart does break when I'm like, guys, like check this out, like this is a beautiful like I want to connect to you, and people are still like stuck, or they're not ready to like receive what I'm going to say or whatever. So sometimes I need to also hold back and realize like when to bring something up and when not to bring something up, even if I want them to connect. And I think that that's something I've gained through growing older, is just because like basically when to talk. And that's where I'm saying like slow my punches a little bit. Like I was like loud, I was very like all over the place. I want to be friends with every single person, even how we met. Like I want to be friends with you, I want to connect with you, but also like actually be friends with you. I don't want this to be superficial. I hope that that was like, I love connecting with you and meeting you and hearing your mind, like especially when we first met. And like so glad we even were able to keep this connection. But yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jonn. There's so much to unpack there. You walked through from saying that you didn't really feel as heard, and if whenever you sense that, so you're really good at sensing when that happens, and it kind of happened almost frequently to the point where you're able to understand how to respond to it. And you try at first to raise your voice and it didn't seem to be something you wanted to keep going. Then it became, no, I'm gonna be like the leader. I'm gonna push through certain things that I set myself as a goal, and I'm gonna show others what that could look like and achieve it. So you took responsibility, it sounds like, to new heights where you saw that your family was where they were, where they were, and now you decided to cultivate something for yourself, and you grew that. And in a lot of ways, you're still exploring, you're still trying to kind of share that with everyone, and enjoy that experience with yourself and those around you. And I think that's really beautiful. I'm just now I'm wondering to myself, as an entrepreneur now, what does it mean by being an entrepreneur to you? What does it mean by being an entrepreneur to you? And how are you working on breaking new grounds for yourself today?
Right. So like, what's it like to be an entrepreneur? Like, how am I applying kind of what I've learned a little bit, or like?
So when I think of being an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
I think you were always that entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
You didn't have to have a business to say you were one. You acted like one. You drove yourself to making things happen. You worked on problem solving. You saw something that there was a need, and you incorporated ways to get to that place and time. And eventually you built a business and you kept your focus. But there is that journey of being an entrepreneur. And I think it is very relevant to developing yourself. So what does it mean to you today? And
Mhm.
what are you doing to drive yourself further in being an entrepreneur?
Right. So yeah, and yeah, I like to pride myself as like being a creative, a person who like doesn't like the normal solution. Like if there's a different way to tell a story, I want to explore it. Like that's something that like I love in my storytelling, in how I tell, how I talk to you. Like sometimes like things I'll weave and then kind of like get back. So to me, I've also been on very, very, very bad film sets. I've been on great film sets, by the way, really great film sets, met amazing people. I've also had bad clients that made me do weird stuff. And, to me, that's been also like really tough. Um, where like very often it's like, well, this is how this is how things go. This is how you do it. And while I think there is truth in structure, like that's something I'm definitely learning, is like I can't just be this flailing artist. Like there's a lot of people, there's a lot of artists that are wonderful people that aren't able to make it work. They're not able to make their, and in reality, they should keep it a hobby. And that's no insult to them at all. Like this is like some people are able to turn it into a money-making thing. And in my industry, I need to also work with people. Like there's only so much I can do as one person. I can film a little bit, but like I only can catch a certain amount of work and have a certain amount of influence. And some things that I try to do is, I've taken literal notes on like I hated this, or like this was great. I loved when I'm a big goes back to people. I think customer experience is the most important thing for anything. You could have the worst service at a restaurant, worst service ever, finally get your food, it's hot but it's late and you're pissed, and the owner's like, hey, you know what, food's on us tonight and here's a bottle of wine. I'm so sorry for the delay. So, you can't do that all the time, but like I've had that happen to me a few times, like at a restaurant. Um, and I remember this restaurant and I still go there to this day. Like I've spent so much money at these restaurants, but because of that one, I felt seen. I felt taken care of. And so I want to take care of my crew. I want to make sure that we're not just like unpaid intern. We want to, hey, I hated being unpaid. I want to make sure that we're paying even just something for our interns when we bring interns on for our projects or whatever. I want to make sure that like, hey, if it's even if it's a free, even if it's a passion project set, like everybody's getting something out of it. Like a person who really wants to be in the camera department on this set, let's get them as the assistant. Let's fulfill that part of this stuff. And I think a lot of this comes from deep listening to what is actually needed from your crew, but also on, from your clients. A very common problem, with artists, and even in the film industry, is like the client will come and say, hey, we want this. And I had I was doing some training for a commercial, or excuse me, I was doing a training video for a commercial restaurant, and they were like, hey, we want to do these trainings. And we were like, so what do you want? And as we were asking questions, we were trying to deep listen, and we realized that like they really want to the people who hired us want to impress their boss. And so we were able to kind of recognize that like they don't just want training for this, like this training could be elevated and we can add like cooking video to it as well, like slow motion, like the food's falling and the food's like flying in slow motion, steam's kind of doing all this stuff. And our one day, this is the budget project turned into a 3 playful day. And this all really came from deep listening, realizing what the client wants. And then we were actually able to negotiate, a different style budget to meet that need. And at the end of the day, the crew felt taken care of. The client was so excited, and we got really cool footage that we've been able to put in our demo reel and like be able to promote as well. Whereas it could have been something else if we just checked the box. But because we were trying to deep listen, trying to elevate our crew's experience as well as the client's experience, and people remember experiences. We don't remember often what we were like. We don't remember the price of things. We sometimes don't remember the plot of a movie, but we remember going to the movies with your mom. We remember how, like, even I'm sure like your memories are a little blurred, even our friendship memories, there's like some blurriness, but like there was fun moments when we were doing summer stuff. And it's like, I think that's what people remember, and that's what people crave. And I think that builds connections, and it's human connection. I think that's I've said it so many times, but like I really care about people, and I really think that like we remember those moments. We remember feeling heard. We remember feeling taken care of. And it's so important for, I think, myself and for other people to try to understand what people are feeling, the emotion they're feeling. Don't just give people solutions, but like we need to validate feelings.
I appreciate that. This is a curious question.
Yeah.
Between you and me. But like, how am I doing with my listening skills? Because I want to know from professional, lifelong learner who's constantly working on deep listening / entrepreneur who cares. And it seems like you're very successful. And I want to go deeper into that too. Like, how deep listening has helped you build your career as well. But how am I doing today with
So
listening?
yeah, you're doing really great. You're after I say something, you reflect it, and it gives me a chance to you reflect it, and it gives me a chance to clarify if you said something wrong. So that's one strategy that I do for feeling heard. There's a book called like I Hear You, and it's an incredible short book. I feel like it's changed my life. It's changed my relationships with my dad, and some like really friends that I sometimes would like butt heads with. And really, again, it boils down to like validate your emotion, like state what happened, and but again, try to find that emotion. Like if you hear the word like I feel sad, like be like, wow, I would feel sad too. That's something like that's, even if you don't know the feeling, or like, I can't imagine, that sounds crazy. That's so important. As a listener, reflecting that, like the reflective listening, and not offering, the big one also is not offering feedback, or not offering advice unless it's asked for.
Just
So
like now.
like now, so like off, like that's something that like people forget. And there's times where I literally will say, hey, like, do you want advice from me, or would you like could I give you a thought? And I've had people say, no, I think I'm good, thanks for listening. And like, so happy. Like, I'm like, it doesn't feel like you do much, but like that's a lot of those are huge. And I mean, I just think it's like, it's really validating constantly, and like you just did, repeating what they said, and it gives me a chance to say, no, you don't understand, or like, exactly, that usually if someone says like, exactly, like that's a great indication that they felt heard.
Really powerful thought. So how does deep listening help you with your career? It sounds like to me your business really took off because you're creating incredible relationships that people trust, and they will refer you to other clients or people that they know. And you have a strong team, people trust you. I mean, this is all my imagination, but is that something, am I on the right track or off track?
There's definitely an organization, a business organization that I'm currently working on that, again, I'm not business mind. I'm like the visionary. I'm a good starter. I am not a good, I am not always a good finisher, which is why it's great to have like people that are good closers around me. And, I'm able to help, like, that's just where my strong arm is. So like realizing that like I'm great at like inspiring, I'm a great idea generator. And I've also learned a lot of like what works, what doesn't work. But I will say, like, I do have people in my life that I do speak with about organizing myself from a business standpoint, because like you do need the business side. This is, again, as I said before, the many artists neglect this part, and then there ends up being miscommunication. You have a client who's like, oh, you're an artist, you can make a logo. And I'm like, well, I haven't made a logo, but I need money. So I end up taking jobs, and you end up burning out really good people. And so trying to find the right fit for the right job is, I think, key. And like you said, building trust, super important. And the trust helps me go a little further with someone. And then, once that builds the trust, then they continually build the trust with the steps that we're going to take. Like, my dad, who only orders like the same thing at like a Chinese restaurant, but it's like, hey dad, try this. And he tries and he's, oh my God, this is so good. This isn't like the Chinese restaurant in my area. And I'm like, Dad, that's not Chinese, like that's just American Chinese. And it's like there's like a whole nother world. But like sometimes like that's these baby steps and it's building trust. I think that's where building trust, and also understanding kind of with the deep listening, is understanding when people are ready to catch something. And that's something with listening, is realizing like, is someone ready for my level 10 advice? There's certain things that, like, I don't know, my grandma doesn't understand about film, and she'll never, it's okay, no big deal. But I try to give her what she can understand, what she can catch. And that's where like asking someone like, hey, could I give you a thought? If they're not ready for the thought, they'll just keep talking. Like that's another clear, and then keep validating. And they'll love you. They'll say you're the best listener in the world if you just keep doing that. But knowing when someone's ready to catch something, knowing when someone's ready to take the next step, I think these are it's a practice, and there's a lot of like failing, but like failing's not a bad thing. Like failing is like learning. So I know that like I'm kind of going down a few different rabbit holes, and I'm trying to like contain it, but because I do have a lot of opinions on like cultivation of your team and how important that is. And like going back to deep listening and understanding, like, is someone ready? Does someone want it? Like, I think that's another thing, is like, does someone want to grow? Does someone want to do this? Like, there's a lot of people, they do not want to grow. They just want to watch their show, or do their thing, get that check. But I don't want to be, I want to be a person that also connects people. And I think my experience from being on great sets that I remember feeling emboldened and inspired, and trying to recreate those moments for other people. And I also feel excited that I'm able to grab some opportunities and, hopefully pour into like the next generation too.
Yeah, and Jonn, I can feel exactly what you're trying to do. Even though I'm not part of your team, I can sense your
Well, we have an opening on LinkedIn. If you know, I just
yeah, I mean, totally share it, and then we can, for people. I want to ask you, what would be your 3 top suggestions or tips for young entrepreneurs in their 20s, 30s, looking to shift and take on new challenges?
Just like some advice. As an entrepreneur, I think it's really important to, so I've been doing this for 10 years, and I moved to Atlanta 10 years ago. And I feel like that's when I would make films with my camera, but like taking it seriously, and then having Arrhythmia for like 3 or 4 or 5 years. It did much better after the third year. Focusing on the business side is huge. Money is oxygen, and you can't survive with just money. There's a really cool book called Creativity Inc. It's about the Pixar story, and they talk about how like Disney needs to make sequels for the money, so then they can make the new thing. So as a creative, you need to focus on the money, the building the structure of a company. I think that that's so important, and meeting people that can do that with you. And so like that's like one thing that really important they need to do. And that's something that I didn't really know how to do invoicing. I didn't know how to do taxes. There's a lot of this stuff that like you can be an artist, but like this is the stuff that like if you want to be an entrepreneur, this you really need to know this and have like systems in place. Otherwise, you're going to trip and fall. I've done that a lot. And like creating contracts with clients. I've been burned by a lot of clients in the past because we didn't have a contract. You know, a lot, and some of my industry is like, hey, yeah, we'll do it for you for sure. But like, I think a lot of businesses, they want the bit. So there's that. I'm like trying not to overtalk. But I love talking about this kind of stuff. So focusing on like how a business runs from like how do we make money and revenue? Like that's really important from an entrepreneur. I think the next part is like not being afraid to fail. Failing is fine as long as you're failing up and you're learning. So I was trying to write some scripts in 2019, right before the pandemic. And I was like, I want 10 good scripts. So maybe like one out of one out of every 10 scripts I write is good, or maybe 1 out of 50, which is being like very like, I think I'm better than that. But for me, I was like, well, if I want 10 good ones, then I need to write 100 short films. So I wrote 100 short films in 2019, and I feel like I got like 20 good scripts. I think I got like 10 really good scripts, and I think I got 2 like absolute bangers. And so I think that like, and there's a lot of failures. There's a lot of really bad scripts in there, but I feel like we forget that like that's what keeps you creative. That's what keeps you trying new things. You trying new things you failing means you're trying something you're not good at, and that's fine. Like people with an accent are learning a new language usually. Like that's the reason you have an accent, is because you are learning a new language. So we sometimes judge that like, oh, but the accent's bad, but it's like, no, you're learning something. So I think that that's the second part, is like not being afraid of failure and trying new things. Like that's so big, and being a place that like that kind of knows that. I think those are the big things that like kind of marry a little bit. And like I think like lastly is like partnering with good people, and like asking questions, and like listening to things that worked, and partnering. I think that that's another thing, is like partnering. A lot of people are trying to do this alone to get your story heard, stuff like that. And I think that there's, again, a place for it. You need to be doing creative work and corporate work. I think that that's a big thing. Eventually you might get to a point where the creative work is also the fun work is also that way. But like in a world of transactions, like you're gonna have great days and bad days. And so having people, surrounding yourself with people, I think is so important, to like good people to encourage you during the hard times. Because like I definitely went through hard times during this like even like 15 years of me doing film, where it's like, shoot, like there's no film work in my town, or very small. Like for me to leave, I have to make a jump. I have to, and I took a chance. I was either going to move to New York City, California, or Atlanta. And my friend was like, hey, I think Atlanta's going to grow in the film industry. And he was not wrong. Isaac is not wrong. So, but yeah, I think, yeah, you're a better listener than me, but definitely, I think it's the business organization, staying creative and not being afraid to fail, and then surrounding yourself by people who are doing that as well. So you can like take their advice or don't take their advice, but I think like you're going to need that team of, you're going to need that friendships and companionships during really hard times to keep pushing you and helping you grow. And again, to reiterate that last point, if you are failing, it means you're trying something that's bigger than you, and that's okay. There does need to come a time when you like, hey, this ain't working. But I think the fear of failure stops a lot of people from doing what they already know in their heart they need to do.
I think that you just hit the punchline there. It's what's in your heart. And if you can tap into that, it's better to act on it than to feel it and keep on feeling that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like,
gonna,
I was gonna say it's scary. I think it's being brave, which is like moving forward while you're scared. Like, and I think a lot of people are worried, especially creatives, because like we pour our whole heart into something, and then and if you're trying to sell this art, corporate people or people with the money are going to change your idea. And so it's almost like it's going to be, but in general, like for you to do this, for you to pioneer your own podcast, for you to pioneer a lot of stuff, like it's scary and it's weird and awkward, but it's also like, it's admirable. And I mean, we love watching people move onward, even while they're scared.
Thank you, Jonn. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you sharing your top 3 feedback for people who are looking to do something new and different that means something to them, that they know is unique and special to them. So I really hope that people will do that work and within themselves and look inwards to see what is it they really want to do. So final question, Jonn, who or what inspires you?
Inspires me to like, who or what inspires you? I'm a I feel like, I think trying new things and traveling really inspire me. Like learning about new cultures. Like I remember I moved, or I traveled to Puerto Rico, and I was like, the world runs like this? Like, what else am I missing? And trying new, like me being open to new food, me being open to new experiences, just trying, just be open to it. I think that to me just like explodes my like excitement and creativity. And that's the stuff that inspires me. And traveling inspires me, I would say. So I think that traveling also gives me a voice. I think that sometimes when I lose my creative voice, if I feel like I'm in a creative lull, often traveling will inspire me to write something new. Me experiencing, like if you're stuck in a loop, which a lot of people are, you got to get out of the loop for it to move. And often when like you change your rudder, you change your trajectory. That's another thing. I'm really big in trajectories. Like, where are we heading? Like, not where are we going? And little tiny tweaks in in your life will change your trajectory. And I think that that's something that like traveling helps inspire me to, and like not being afraid of like new food, not being afraid of different people's opinions, like hearing it out, truly hearing it, like not just like judging it. But yeah.
It sounds to me like you're constantly growing and you're always looking for the new thing to cultivate you as an artist, creative entrepreneur. So that's super exciting. And how can people travel to where you are and find you?
So I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm based here. I like to travel though, of course. So depending on where people are, I don't mind visit. I love visiting people. I love hearing people's stories, and I love connecting people. And that's really to me, if I, if when people find their dream, oh my God, it's like it's like a drug to me. It's so exciting, like for people to feel excited about things. So if I can somehow connect you to things, that's definitely something I like to do. And I have a Instagram and LinkedIn and YouTube as well. And I'm trying to just make some cool moves and tell cool stories. And I want to do good work well. I don't want to just make good work. I want to make it well.
And your YouTube channel, what is it called?
Still growing. It's Arrhythmia Films. And I also have a beer channel helping people like learn about beer. I'm much more active on that channel, but like practically helping people actually make a beer instead of just like, all beer tastes the same, but like helping people find like what goes well with certain things. So that's like another passion project I have. But yeah, working on the website, trying to revamp the website as we speak. I haven't updated it since 2018. So we're working on a not a rebrand, but revamping the website as we speak. So
Oh, that sounds awesome. Sounds like the next time we talk, you'll definitely have your website up and even more YouTube videos to share. So, Jonn, thank you so much for this special conversation. I
yeah,
feel like I've learned a lot of great things. I feel like there are so many things that I want to understand more about myself too, just from listening to you. So I really do hope people are listening to either see what resonates with them, and if so, take it as a practical advice to try and implement something new or different and see how that goes for you. So thank you, Jonn. Any last few words?
I mean, you're like a great recap person. Like it's like you're killing it. So I'm so proud of you working on this. And I know like even starting this is scary, but I think you're really tapping in to people, helping, like you're really helping people connect. And I think that a lot of people are scared they're alone. And I think that you're kind of giving people tools through this channel, tools to deal with issues, and like small issues, big issues. It's like kind of like it's like getting soap in your eye when you're like a kid and it like hurts and burns. And as we get older, like we have the tools, like we close our eyes tight, we wipe it with a water or with a towel, and it's the same pain, but we have knowledge and tools. And I feel like that's what you're giving people right now.
I love that. Not only does it feel good to like hear, but it's like very relatable. Thank you so much, Jonn, for being on this podcast. I'm super excited and I look forward to having you back at another episode. All right. Have a great day, everyone.